Hi everyone, my name is Margaret Calloway. I had a near-death experience in 1997. I was a research biochemist at Johns Hopkins University at the time, and I had spent my entire career believing that consciousness was nothing more than chemical reactions in the brain. What happened to me on a Tuesday afternoon in November proved me wrong in ways I still cannot fully explain. Let me take you back a bit so you understand who I was before all of this. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, the daughter of a mechanical engineer and a school teacher. My parents were practical, no-nonsense people. We went to church on Easter and Christmas, but faith was never really part of our daily life. Science was. My father used to say, "If you cannot measure it, it does not exist." And I took that to heart. I was the girl in high school dissecting frogs while everyone else was passing notes. I got my PhD from the University of Michigan in 1978, and by the time I was 45, I had published over 60 papers on cellular biology. I was married to a wonderful man named Richard, a retired history professor, and we had 2 grown children, David and Sarah. Life was orderly. Life made sense. I had no patience for anything I could not see under a microscope. If someone brought up the afterlife at a dinner party, I would smile politely and change the subject. I thought people who believed in that sort of thing were simply afraid of the dark. I was not afraid of anything, or so I thought. Now here is where everything changes, and I need you to stay with me, because what happened next sounds almost ridiculous in hindsight. In November of 1997, I was 53 years old. I had been having these headaches for about 6 weeks, dull pressure behind my left eye that would not go away. Richard kept telling me to see a doctor, and I kept telling him it was just stress from a grant deadline. Scientists make terrible patients. We think we know everything. On November 11th, a Tuesday, I was in my lab on the 4th floor of the biology building. It was around 2:15 in the afternoon. I remember because I had just looked at the clock, thinking I needed to call Sarah about Thanksgiving plans. I was standing at my workstation, reviewing some protein analysis data, when the headache suddenly became something else entirely. It was like someone had driven a railroad spike through the back of my skull. I grabbed the edge of the counter. The room tilts. The fluorescent lights above me start to swim and blur together. I try to call out to my lab assistant, a young woman named Donna, but my mouth will not form words. It is like my brain has disconnected from my body. I hear a sound, this high-pitched ringing, and then my left arm goes completely numb. I am watching my own hand slide off the counter in slow motion. The data printouts scatter across the floor like white leaves. My knees buckle. I hit the ground hard, my cheek against the cold linoleum, and I can smell the chemical tang of the floor cleaner they used every morning. I hear Donna screaming my name. I hear her sneakers squeaking as she runs. I hear her on the phone, saying something about a stroke, about an ambulance. And then I hear nothing at all. The ringing stops. The pain stops. Everything stops. It is like someone pulled the plug on the entire universe. What had happened, I learned later, was a massive hemorrhagic stroke. A blood vessel in my brain had burst, like a pipe in winter. By the time the paramedics arrived 7 minutes later, I had no pulse. They performed CPR in the elevator on the way down to the ambulance. My heart stopped twice on the ride to Johns Hopkins Hospital, which, thank God, was only 4 minutes away. The emergency room team later told Richard they gave me less than a 10% chance of surviving the first hour. They were pumping medications into me, drilling a hole in my skull to relieve the pressure. At one point, the lead neurologist, a doctor named Alan Whitfield, turned to the surgical team and said, "We are losing her." But here's the thing. While all of that was happening to my body, something entirely different was happening to me. The moment everything went quiet in that lab, I found myself somewhere else. And I need to pause here because I have spent almost 30 years trying to find the right words for this, and I still have not found them. The best I can do is tell you what it felt like. Imagine you have been wearing a heavy winter coat your entire life, so heavy you forgot you were wearing it, and someone suddenly lifts it off your shoulders. That lightness, that freedom, that is the closest I can get. I was no longer in my body. I was no longer Margaret Calloway, biochemist, wife, mother. I was just awareness, pure, clear, infinite awareness. I was surrounded by what I can only describe as living light. Not light like a lamp or the sun. This light had intelligence. It had warmth. It had what I can only call personality. And it knew me. Not my name or my publications or my degrees. It knew the real me, the one underneath all of that. And it loved me. I know that sounds like a cliche, and I apologize for that, but there is no other word. It was love so complete and so unconditional that every experience of love I had ever known on earth felt like a candle next to the sun. I felt no fear, no shame, no regret. No worry about the grant deadline or the Thanksgiving menu or whether my cholesterol was too high. All of those earthly concerns just evaporated. They were not even memories. They simply did not exist in that place. And then something happened that changed me forever. I became aware of what I can only call a presence. Not a person exactly, but a being of some kind, made of that same intelligent light. It did not speak to me in words. The communication was instant, like downloading an entire book in a single heartbeat. And what it showed me was this. It showed me every moment of my life, but not from my perspective. It showed me every moment from the perspective of the people I had affected. I felt what Richard felt when I dismissed his concerns about my headaches. I felt what my daughter Sarah felt when I missed her school play because of a conference in Geneva. I felt what my lab assistant Donna felt when I was short with her on a bad day. But here is what shocked me. There was no judgment in any of it. None. The presence was not showing me these things to punish me or shame me. It was showing me that every single interaction we have with another human being matters. Every single one. The cashier at the grocery store. The stranger you hold the door for. The friend you call when you know they are hurting. It all matters because we are all connected in ways my microscopes could never show me. And then I received what I think of as the real message. The presence communicated something so simple it almost seems silly to say out loud. It said that consciousness does not come from the brain. The brain is a receiver, like a television set. When the television breaks, the signal does not stop. It keeps going. We keep going. Death is not an ending. It is a doorway. And I am standing there, a woman who has spent 30 years studying cellular biology, and I am being told that the most fundamental assumption of my entire career was wrong. And the strangest part is that in that moment, I did not feel defensive or angry. I felt relieved, like I had finally been given the answer to a question I did not even know I was asking. Then, just like that, I was yanked back. It felt like being pulled through a drain. One moment, I am in that infinite space of light and love, and the next, I am slamming back into my body with all its weight and pain and limitation. The first thing I felt was a tube down my throat. The first thing I heard was the beeping of monitors. The first thing I saw was the fluorescent ceiling of the ICU, and I remember thinking, those lights are so dim compared to where I just was. Dr. Whitfield later told Richard that I had been clinically dead for just over 4 minutes. 4 minutes. It felt like a lifetime. It felt like I had been gone for a month. When they ran the brain scans afterward, the neurological team was baffled. The area of damage from the stroke should have left me with severe impairment. One of the residents used the word miracle, and Dr. Whitfield did not correct him. I wish I could tell you I woke up transformed and everything was beautiful from that point on. But that is not how it works. The first year after my stroke was the hardest year of my life. I had to relearn how to walk. I had tremors in my left hand that ended my lab career. I had panic attacks so severe that Richard would find me on the bathroom floor at 3 a.m, shaking. And I could not talk about what I had experienced, because who was going to believe me? I was a scientist. My colleagues would have thought I had lost my mind. I kept it inside for almost 2 years before I finally told Richard one night over dinner. I just broke down crying and told him everything. And that man, that beautiful, patient man, took my hands and said, "I believe you." Those 3 words saved me. I eventually found support groups for other people who had experienced NDEs, and I was stunned to discover how many of them described the exact same things I had seen and felt. The light, the love, the life review, the sense of being home. People from completely different backgrounds and belief systems, all describing the same place. The scientist in me could not ignore that data. I left my position at Johns Hopkins in 1999. I spent the next 15 years volunteering at hospice centers, sitting with people who were dying, holding their hands, and telling them what I had seen. I would look them in the eyes and say, "You are going somewhere beautiful, and you will not be alone." And I could see the fear leave their faces. That became my life as work. Not the 60 papers, not the grants. Sitting with people in their final hours and helping them let go. I am 81 years old now. Richard passed away in 2019, and I miss him every single day. But I do not grieve the way I would have before my experience, because I know where he is. I have felt that place. I have been in that light, and it is more real than anything in this room. So here is what I want to leave you with today, and I am talking directly to you now, whoever you are, wherever you are watching this. You are not just a body. You are not just a brain. You are something so much bigger and more beautiful than you can possibly imagine from this side. Every kind word you speak matters. Every hand you hold matters. Every moment of love you give or receive is the whole point of being here. And when your time comes, whenever that is, you do not need to be afraid. You are just going home. I love you all. Thank you for listening to an old scientist who finally learned the most important things cannot be measured.